Come on in, come on in. Welcome back to the movie theater lobby. I assure you, we're open. The lobby is the place we like to hang out before and after a film and chat about movies. I'm Brandon, opening up the lobby today, and making sure that I do a fine job is my demanding yet fair boss.
Hey, I'm Leia.
There she is. So Leia, I think I've got everything ready to go. Popcorn is popped, soda is fizzy, chairs are clean and comfy, ready for our fellow movie lovers to hang out with us. In fact, Leia, we're actually getting a few people coming back week after week now.
I know, it's great. I mean, I think at some point we may have to start reserving seats for them.
You know what? I fully agree. Thank you also to everyone who keeps coming back and putting up with us, and to those who stop in to have a little fun with us now and again too. You're also appreciated.
Before we get started today, speaking of appreciation, you and I both worked in retail in the past.
Oh, yeah. Did we ever?
A lot, actually.
A long time.
So we can sort of sympathize with the characters in today's subject.
Yes.
Do you mind if I share at least one story?
Yeah.
About my personal underappreciation?
I think that would be a great idea. I love horrible retail stories.
So I used to work at a little retail place, and I'm not going to say what joint it is because we really don't. But I worked there for 15 years, so I've got a lot of stories about said place. But I think my favorite story comes out of the pandemic. And at the time, we were all required to wear masks, and my company was out of California. So, of course, they were really strict on the whole mask mandate. And they were kind of telling us, on a store-by-store basis, you can decide what you want to do, but you're more than welcome to deny service to anybody who's not wearing a mask.
Right. Love it.
My boss at the time decided we were not going to allow service to anybody who wasn't wearing a mask.
I support that decision. Because
it was mandated that you wear one, and it was up to the companies to decide. Where she came from was more like the Milwaukee area, very liberal, very, science-minded, kind of left-leaning. The downside is where the store was located was in a small town, very red, very conservative. Nobody wanted to wear a mask, and everybody made it very clear that it was not appreciated from us. I was running a register at the time, and this guy came up to the register, and he wasn't wearing a mask, and I said, "Sir, can you please put your mask on? Because I'm not wearing that shit."
Oh.
I'm not wearing that shit.
Super
I was like, all right, well, then you're going to need to step aside because I'm not helping you. And he lost it on me, told me I had the audacity.
Oh.
I was going to wring his stuff out.
Oh,
he was
really?
going to buy it. And I just stood there and looked at him, and I had a line of customers behind me. And this boss I was talking to you about, she came charging up there, all
barreling.
5 foot of her. She's a little thing.
Fierce.
She's fierce. The little ones are the ones you got to worry about.
Indeed.
She came barreling up there. She grabbed the guy's stuff off of the register, threw it on the ground, looked over his shoulder and said, "Ma'am, can I help you next?" And she just looked over his shoulder and stared at the lady and didn't even look him in the eyes. Oh, man. I mean, this is a story of underappreciation, but it's also a story of just vindication.
Yeah. Underappreciated by the consumer, appreciated by your boss.
It was great.
Right.
So I just moved over to the next register. She took care of that register. It was wonderful.
Right. It's always nice to be employed somewhere and feel like your boss has your back. Being supported by your management in retail is often a big ask.
It's a big ask in some cases.
In fact,
I've gotten lucky.
I'll tell a real short little story about a time that my boss didn't have my back. I worked for a major electronics retailer, and my brother had come to visit us in Reno. While he was visiting, it turns out he had appendicitis. So
he kept complaining about how bad he had to poop.
Yeah, he had to poop real bad, he said.
No, it was appendicitis.
Because his appendix was inflamed. Middle of the afternoon, and I was scheduled for a late closing shift. So we took my brother to the emergency room, and he was admitted pretty quickly. It was a pretty severe.
It was pretty severe. It was bad.
Pretty severe appendicitis. My brother was 16 at the time, under 18. I called work to get out of my shift to be there at the hospital with my brother.
Your baby brother.
And my boss on the phone, when I told him that my brother was going into surgery for appendicitis, I'm not going to come in today. My boss on the phone said, "What, are you going to do the surgery yourself? Come into work."
He's 16.
Yeah. So I said, he's my under 18-year-old brother. He's in surgery. My parents are worried for him. They're half a country away. I'm not coming in. And then I hung up. That was the end of the statement.
The audacity, though.
Yeah,
wow.
that was some balls, man.
Huh.
Anyway, do you think we've shared enough here?
Yeah, there's so many more.
There's so many.
But we don't need to share anymore.
No, we've got a big episode ahead of us anyway. So
all we're saying is we feel the characters, and you know what? We feel a lot of you too.
Yeah. So Leia, now that everyone has a little more insight to us and our horrible retail lives.
It's in the past.
It's in the past. Let's introduce everyone who may need it to one crazy day in the life
single day
of a incredibly put upon convenience store employee.
He's not even supposed to be there today.
Not even supposed to be here today. Leia, what movie are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about Clerks, baby.
Not even supposed to be here today.
So Clerks, a drama comedy released in 1994. On an unassuming, early New Jersey morning in April of 1993, a telephone rings in a disorganized, disheveled domicile. Tumbling from a darkened closet like discarded dirty laundry is Dante, played by Brian O'Halloran. On the phone is Dante's boss, asking him to open the store and cover until they can get there.
Be there by 12? Swear. Swear you'll be there by 12 and I'll do it.
Agreeing to the terms because Dante has a hockey game to play at 2, he suits up and sets out. Arriving at Stop Groceries, Dante starts about the opening tasks. Putting out papers, brewing coffee, setting out trash, and opening shit. Some mischievous little shit stuck gum in the shutter locks.
Why don't you open the shutters, get some sunlight in here?
Someone jammed gum in the locks.
You're kidding.
Bunch of savages in this town.
Employing ingenuity, Dante grabs a large sheet of cloth and some shoe polish and puts a sign across the window stating plainly, "I assure you, we're open." Exhausted from a closing shift the previous night, and having been woken up early and due to the benign, monotonous retail duties, Dante finally opens the shop and slumps on the counter.
That look is something that I have seen so many times.
He just looks so crestfallen and defeated as he puts his head down. Here begins the day that Dante should not have had. Working a shift with co-workers, the likes of Dante's friend Randall, who works at the video rental store sharing an adjacent wall, and also happens to be played by Jeff Anderson, as well as social calls from relationship partners past and present, like Caitlin, played by Lisa Spoonhour, and Veronica, played by Marilyn Gigliotti, putting up with chronic loiterers, the likes of Jay and Silent Bob.
Chronic.
Played by Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith himself, respectively. Not to mention troublemaking sales reps, eccentric customers, funerals, hockey games, arguments, and spirited nerd debates. Leia, I kind of feel like Dante is already having a tough day. So, since he's not even supposed to be here today...
I don't need this. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Let's leave the poor guy to his work and start ours, huh?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Quick and concise. I've heard many people in the past refer to this movie as the Seinfeld of movies.
Yeah.
It's a movie about nothing.
It is
right?
a movie about nothing.
So I'm not going to spend all day telling everybody about it.
It is also the movie that launched 1,000 ships. So
it sure did.
On one hand, it's about nothing. On the other hand, it is everything.
Yeah, it is. There's surprisingly a lot to this little movie about nothing.
Yes, there is. And a lot of things that came out of this movie.
Since this movie is so influential on pop culture and forever kind of stuck in cinema history, should we talk about the people who brought it to us?
Yeah, and I think we should start with Kevin Smith, because without Kevin Smith and his friend Scott Mosier, we wouldn't have this movie.
We wouldn't have this movie. This entire cast, for the most part, started in this movie.
Yep, and a lot of them stayed in Kevin Smith's world.
Yeah.
Period.
Many of them never went on to do anything else again. They were just friends, family, or close associates who popped up and did a favor for Kevin Smith. But a few of them did go on and do a few other things. Let's get down to business. Let's talk about the guy who envisioned it all.
Yeah, Kevin Smith.
The guy who sacrificed so much to make this little movie.
So is his directorial debut. His writing debut, his acting debut. He decided he wanted to make a movie. Kevin actually was going back to school at the time that he made this film. He was going to Vancouver Film School, and he decided to apply after he watched the movie Slacker, written by Richard Linklater.
Yep.
So he went back to Vancouver Film School, which is in British Columbia, Canada, and that's where he met Scott Mosier. But like 4 months into going to classes, he dropped out, quit school. And his biggest reason for that was he felt there was better ways he could use his money.
Right.
So he found out he had a week to get his full refund back. And he had been thinking about all this money he was spending. It was like $5,000.
Yeah, he's going to need that money.
Yeah. And he was thinking, man, I could quit, get all my money back, and I could put that towards something more meaningful, at least more meaningful to him.
Right. Yeah. Not to disparage an education.
But more meaningful to him at the time. That was his thought process. And in that week, he took time to decide what he wanted to do with his life. Mm-hmm. And he decided to drop out of film school and made a pact with his friend.
Right, Scott Mosier.
Yep. And the pact was they were both going to go out and write a script. And whoever wrote the script first, they were going to direct. And the other one was going to produce.
Yeah.
We already know who won that.
Turns out Kevin Smith wrote his first.
Turns out Kevin Smith wrote his first. And Mosier actually had come out and said that he felt it was the way it was supposed to be.
I think so.
Because he said his script was shit. He said it was so bad.
That's a humble consideration. That's super good.
He's like, this is the way it was supposed to be. He was supposed to write it. I was supposed to direct or produce it. And that's how it was supposed to be.
And they co-created the View Askew productions together.
From then on out, he's always been his producer for the most part. I think there's a couple of things he hasn't produced. But for the most part, he's produced everything.
It's been a very cool partnership. With mention of the View Askew productions, it has gone on to produce a ton of movies. Mm-hmm. Mostly Kevin Smith's productions, of course.
Yeah.
And nearly every one of them are big names in history. I mean, they're Clerks, you got Mallrats, Dogma.
Well, it was because of Clerks that they were able to even make Mallrats. Mm-hmm. And Mallrats wouldn't be a thing if Clerks hadn't done what it did. Yeah. So, I mean, that's incredible to me because it just kept snowballing from there.
It did. And such memorable characters. I mean, Dante
a lot of nobodies
Randall.
Who became somebodies, too.
Yeah, exactly. These characters, Jay and Silent Bob especially, have even appeared in things outside of the Kevin Smith universe.
Yeah.
The Kevin Smith cinematic universe. The tendrils that this film has spawned.
I said Scott Mosier had done almost all of Kevin Smith's work. He's produced all of them. The only one that I think he didn't produce was a movie called Cop Out from 2010.
Oh, right, yep.
Yeah, so that was the only one he didn't produce.
Kind of a larger budget-ish.
Yeah. He's the director. He's also the writer of this film. He also did act a little bit in this film, but he claimed that he realized he wasn't cut out for acting, but he wanted to be in the film, so that's how he ended up being the muscle for Jay. He's Silent Bob.
He's the silent character through the entire film, except for one line.
Yeah, it's like everyone's just listening. When his line comes up, I'm like, oh, he's talking. Shh,
right? You gotta pay attention.
He's got something profound to say.
And the Silent Bob wasn't even supposed to say that line. It was originally written for Jay.
He was too
shy. But Jason Mewes had a hard time delivering the line. Yeah. So Kevin Smith decided, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself.
I'll just do it myself.
And it led to a tradition of Silent Bob being silent for the films, except for one profound line in each film.
So aside from that, we've got other actors in this film. We've got Brian O'Halloran. Mm-hmm. He plays the main character. He plays Dante.
He does.
He's been in a lot of Kevin Smith's films. So he's been in Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Clerks the animated series, Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, Clerks 2, Clerks 3.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's kind of run the list.
That's his thing.
If he doesn't show up as Dante, he usually also shows up as like a relative of Dante. So he's
Dante's his whole world.
He's representing the entire family line of the Hicks family.
Yeah. So, of course, there's Jeff Anderson. He plays Randall in the film. He actually proposed to his wife while they were filming.
Right.
And his wife's name was Lisa Spoonauer. Mm-hmm. She played Caitlin. So they only stayed together for about a year after the film wrapped up. But they met for 3 weeks before he proposed to her.
Yeah. It's a fast little romance.
Yeah.
A whirlwind, as they say. Well, and kind of the neat thing about Jeff Anderson is he was never an actor, never really had intentions to be an actor. Mm-hmm. And he is pretty devoted to appearing in Kevin Smith's films. He's made a lot of appearances in Kevin Smith's works. I think he's made a few other appearances elsewhere, and he even
wrote and
directed his own movie.
Now You Know from 2002.
Yeah. But aside from that, he owns and runs his own tile import business.
He does.
Which is incredibly cool.
You know, when he went to audition, he wasn't really going to audition. He was kind of going to just check it out, see what was going on. He happened to be friends with that same friend group.
Yep.
And he came there and Kevin was like, well, do you want to audition? And he's like, well, yeah, I want to audition. He goes, okay, well, what are you going to audition with? Because apparently they have this book that people who audition can read from.
Yeah.
And he didn't have that book and nobody had a copy of it. So then he just said, well, why don't you just read, Jay's lines or something like that. And he gave him Jay's lines to read. And he thought, well, if he's going to put me in the film, it's not going to be a huge part. Turned out to be one of the biggest parts in the film. And it was actually a part that was written for himself.
Yeah, Kevin Smith wrote it for himself. And he's like, I realized I can't deliver those lines. And so that's ended up getting Jeff Anderson involved. Not only, I think, was Kevin Smith realizing that those lines were somebody else would be better off saying them.
Yeah.
Not only was he directing this film, but he was still working at 6 a.m.
At the convenience store that they were filming at.
6 a.m. to 11 p.m. each day.
Mm-hmm.
They were filming overnight until 4 a.m. Then he'd get a few hours of shut-eye and then get up to work again for 21 days straight.
He is quoted saying, though, that he never felt tired and he could have gone another 21 days, no problem.
Oh, I bet it was the adrenaline of him making his film and seeing it come together, his dream.
Which I just think was so cool. I was never tired, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you must have loved what you were doing, because I'd have been exhausted. He played Smug in the Star Wars Clone Wars, too.
Oh, did
Jeff
he?
Anderson. I saw that, and I had to bring it up because, Star Wars.
Star Wars, of course.
Yeah. So you also have Marilyn Gigliotti. She played Dante's girlfriend. What was her name?
Veronica.
Yep. That's right, yes. She also performed in a lot of classic plays before Clerks. She actually met Brian O'Halloran before the two auditioned and landed their parts in Clerks.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kevin Smith had said he didn't realize that they had known each other and that when they were auditioning, they had a lot of chemistry together. And then he found out later that they have been in plays together and stuff like that, yeah. But she's also Puerto Rican and speaks fluent Spanish. And she's an accomplished makeup artist and hairdresser. And as a matter of fact, that's what she was doing while she was also doing Clerks. She would work as a hairdresser during the day and then come in the middle of the night and do this movie and then go back and do hairdressing again.
It's amazing to me how many of these people were so talented outside of just
their regular jobs,
stuff they're doing, and then still devoted to Kevin Smith to give them their time and, work on this tiny little project.
Yeah, when he asked Lisa Spoonhour, he found her at the college she was at. Mm-hmm. She was giving some lines, and that's how he found her. Yeah, they were doing
some auditions or play or something.
He said he followed her out at the parking lot and asked her if she wanted to be in a movie. And her response was, "Is it a porno?" Yeah. And Kevin's like, "Why does everybody think this is a porno? No, it's not a porno."
You're asking a woman if she wants to be in the movie in a darkened parking lot. I think she's assuming something.
I think she's guessing there's a nefarious...
I think it's a correct assumption.
I think so, too. So, yeah, she ended up just getting it because he saw her.
Unfortunately, Lisa Spoonhour, she didn't have an opportunity to go on and do a whole lot.
No, she did not.
She worked in Clerks and then another film called Bartender and then provided some lines for the Clerks animated series. But unfortunately, she passed away in 2017.
She had a pretty good business going. She worked for venues and she had a restaurant and she was pretty successful outside of acting.
Yep, she was.
The thing she died from was an overdose, but it wasn't because she tried to kill herself or because she was on bad drugs. It was actually an accidental overdose. She was fighting cancer. She had anemia, lung disease. She had an immune deficiency. She was on some medications and unfortunately, it had taken her life. I think the last one we would want to probably talk about is Jason Mewes.
I suppose we got to talk about that guy.
Because,
he's kind of a big deal in this movie.
He's kind of a big deal in this film.
He's not intentionally one of the main characters, but
he kind of steals the show, man.
The way that Jason performed that role, you're right. He really does steal the show.
Steals the spotlight, man. When he's on. He steals it.
Which is incredible considering how camera shy he was.
Yeah, incredibly camera shy. He actually worked the cash register at Kevin Smith's comic book store, and that's how they ended up meeting. Part of how they ended up meeting. It's actually not the real story. I have another story about how they actually really ended up meeting, but that's kind of where they developed their relationship. Yeah. He's actually appeared in every film directed by Smith except for Jersey Girl, Cop Out, and Red State.
Red State I really like. Jersey Girl, Cop Out, I'm okay passing on those ones, honestly.
Between the making of the films Chasing Amy and Dogma, Kevin Smith and Jason actually attended an AIDS benefit. Muse's mother was HIV positive. She was a drug addict, and she had actually contracted AIDS from that lifestyle. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2000 too. So despite all that, Jason has really shown us that he's resilient. Yeah.
He did have troubles with substances through his life. And it's even said that Kevin Smith was intent on creating Clerks 2 as a way to
help him
incentivize Jason to stay clean and sober, which is great. I mean, I'm sure Kevin Smith was likely going to make Clerks 2 anyway.
Yes.
But he may have, put an intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
And I do have to say another thing that I think is really awesome about Jason Mewes. Yeah. He is a serious toy and comic book collector.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he is way into collectible toys, man. It's awesome. He knows so much. When he does an interview, so much of the interview gets consumed with him just talking about these toys that he's chasing after or looking for. It's so cool.
I was going to say, I think that's something that's near and dear to your heart, because while you can be an introvert and not be the most extroverted person out there,
typically I'm quite quiet.
If somebody talks to you about something you love, it's on. And I think that Jason's the same way.
Get me started on a nerd topic and I'm going.
And it's going.
Try talking to me about sports small talk. I will simply say flat out, I don't know sports, and the conversation will not intentionally end, but it'll end because I'll have nothing to contribute.
He's actually a big fan of the TV shows Columbo, Murder, She Wrote, and I love this, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Angel, which are two of my very favorite TV shows. And then, of course, he's also a fan of Smallville. He's a toy collector. He likes some of my favorite shows. Yeah. He's a neat dude.
Neat fella. And he was in one of the most insane horror movies that I had ever seen, Feast.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. He was in that movie.
He was in Feast, for sure. Very briefly. What a movie.
All right. So do you have any other actors you'd like to touch on real quick?
I think for the most part, that'll cover it.
Yeah.
There are a few other that I'm going to mention along the way.
Sure.
But they're just mentioned for kind of small little tidbits.
So let's talk a little bit about the acclaim for the film. Legs.
The legs are back.
10.75. So this is some pretty good legs.
Look at those legs.
Those are some tall legs.
Right, indeed.
Which is, in this case, pretty indicative of how this film has done. It didn't have a very good start, but then it blew up after Miramax bought it, and it's had a cult following ever since. So much so that it even is in it's been preserved in the Library of Congress.
There it is.
In 2019. It's definitely a staple in our lives now in the film industry. Domestically, it did just over $3 million. Opening weekend, it did $31,600 with a production budget of $27,000. After Miramax bought it, they actually upped it to $230,000, which was spent on music licensing and editing. So it did go up a little bit after Miramax purchased it.
Right.
But its original budget when he filmed it, those 21 days, was just $27,000.
Right. Yeah.
$27,000. Did you read all of the different things he did to accumulate said $27,000?
Yeah, some of them really hurt my heart.
Oh my gosh, incredible. Yeah. The biggest portion of it was after selling his comic book collection.
There it is.
Which gave him a large
Quite
chunk.
a boost, I'm sure.
He had borrowed $3,000 from his parents because the camera that they were using suddenly didn't work and he needed to purchase a new one.
Right.
His parents said that was all of their retirement savings and that if they didn't pay it back, they would have nothing to retire on.
Nothing.
But they still borrowed him the $3,000 for that. He maxed out 8 to 10 credit cards, all with $2,000 limits on them.
Got to get the money where you can get it.
He spent a portion of the funds he got back from his college education because, like we said, he was going to pay like $5,000 for education in a week before he
got that back.
Back out. So he got that back. He used his paychecks from working at Quick Stop and RST.
Mm-hmm.
He also got some insurance money awarded for some property that he had lost that was damaged in a flood.
Mm-hmm. A car that him and Jason were driving.
Yeah. But you would be happy to know that he reportedly was able to buy most of those comic books back.
I imagine by now he's probably gotten them all.
He's gotten them all of them back, yeah.
But yes, I did read that he got most of them back. It was long before this that I had heard
that he did that.
That his comic book collection was part of the
deal.
The price he had to pay.
Yeah.
Because
could you pay that price, you know?
I know I could. I have.
But you'd be worried you'd get it back.
I have over 7,000 comic books.
Yes.
Boy, having to sell those off for a passion,
You'd have to really
hurts in a way that's like, oh God, that just sucks so bad. For a passionate thing, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Man,
but there's always got to be that little bug in the back of your brain, like, am I going to make this successful, and am I going to be able to buy any of these back?
Right.
Like, once they're gone if you're not successful.
Yep, exactly right.
So I'm sure he had that in the back of his brain. The credit cards were kind of a funny story.
Okay.
Did you hear about how he accumulated all these credit cards?
Why don't you go ahead and tell us?
So his best friend and coworker at the time is named Brian Johnson. I think they might still be friends, but they started a contest to see who could get the most credit cards. So Kevin said he was ahead like 12 to his 5. But they never did anything with them because they were from an Irish Catholic family, and they were always taught that it was the devil's work.
Oh, yeah.
To use credit cards.
Nothing like some Catholic guilt.
Yeah. He said, so he just they sat in a box in his underwear drawer forever. Just had all these credit cards sitting in a box. So then when this time for this movie, he just cashed them all out.
Yeah, just used them up.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much.
That's pretty interesting.
Back to Acclaim.
Right, yeah.
He ended up winning 2 Cannes Film Festival awards. Funny enough, it was picked by Entertainment Weekly magazine as one of the 50 greatest independent films.
Which is a big recognition.
It's a big recognition, except it was a special supplement devoted to independent films and was only distributed to subscribers in November of 1997. So I should say nobody, a lot of people didn't actually get to see the recognition, but it was there anyway.
So owing to the awesomeness that was its ability to pull in some money, is that when it was initially released, it was only released in 2 theaters.
Oh, wow.
Through the life of its theatrical run, it did show up in 96 total different theaters across the country, but not all simultaneously, usually only like 10 or 12 theaters at the same time. It did manage to bring in a lot of money, it traveled around quite a bit, but it was still a pretty limited find. If you were able to watch it in your kind of local theater, that's pretty impressive.
I was reading an article where this woman had said that one of her only regrets about this movie was that she hadn't seen it in the theater.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the regret of a lot of people.
That's a regret that I had always had too. Like I had found this movie in a local Blockbuster or something and just picked it off the shelf just randomly because I was really into independent film at the time.
Ah, okay. You were one of those.
Oh yeah.
Just like Kevin Smith.
So I've heard nothing about it at that point. Just saw it, decided, okay, shoot, let's give it a try.
I read a story about Kevin Smith when he was going to the Vancouver school and he met his
Scott Mosier.
Yeah, when he met Scott, he saw Scott and they were in the same class and he kept thinking what a poser that guy was and how pretentious he was and like, I'm a real artist.
Right.
And I had my like army boots on, and like he was still wearing that black duster that he wears in the film.
Mm-hmm.
He was wearing that in school. And Scott was wearing, his Californian looking, very clean cut. And he said he didn't like him when he first met him because he thought he was like, a poser.
Yeah. It's funny that you mention Scott looking that way because Scott Mosier appears in the film.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he appears as Willem.
Dante, this is Willem Black. This is Dante Hicks, my boyfriend.
How you doing?
In the movie, Willem is he's airheaded. He's
kind of out there. He's a space cadet.
Just kind of wandering about. Initially, Kevin Smith had written Willem to be very collegiate, but Scott Mosier didn't look collegiate according to Kevin Smith, so he changed.
It was a good role switch. I think
to a more
it worked really well.
Kind of aloof, yeah.
But I think in school that was definitely not how he felt.
Right. I will also like to mention 2 taglines that I liked: "Served with an attitude, a bad attitude," which kind of sums up a lot of retail, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt a lot when I was working in retail. Despite the smile on my face, I was screaming inside with almost every customer interaction.
Randall plays basically who Brian Johnson was to Kevin.
Right.
Brian Johnson and Kevin worked together. And Kevin always said that he always looked at Brian Johnson and wished he could be more like him because he would say all the stuff Randall would say in this movie. That's how I felt about, my friend that I worked with at this other retail establishment. I wish I could be just like her.
Right.
She just said whatever was on her mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, if I needed help or if I needed somebody, I'd be like, just get over here. I need your help.
You got it covered. And then probably my favorite line: "Just because they serve you doesn't mean they like you.
Yeah, and that is also accurate.
Yeah. I get along with and I enjoy the company of most people I come into contact with. But those arrogant shoppers, arrogant customers, man.
Who've never worked a day of retail in their lives.
Retail workers are not, they're there to help you.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to
bend over backwards
and perform your every win. Yeah. Treat them like
I'm not kissing your ass.
Please.
I'm not doing that today, sir.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit of the inspiration for the film. Kevin said he had worked at 6 convenience stores in New Jersey from 1989 to 1993.
That's some hopping around.
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of inspiration comes from that.
No doubt.
This film is just all about that. So that's probably where a lot of it came from.
I'm sure a lot of these are real life adjacent stories or embellishments, or maybe some of them aren't even embellishments.
No, you know what? You don't need to embellish much. If you've worked in retail long enough, a lot of these are true. He said that working in convenience stores was an appealing, easy job. And he said it was like being a bartender. It puts you nominally in charge and people have to socialize with you.
It's true.
So I thought that was an interesting quote from him. We had talked about him getting a lot of the inspiration for this film from Richard Linklater's Slacker from 1990.
Yeah.
He actually watched that film on his 21st birthday. So that's where he suddenly got this idea that he wanted to do something just like that.
Yeah. If this movie is about nothing, Slacker is even more about nothing.
Even more about nothing.
It's a very interesting film. I enjoyed it when I had seen it. In fact, I would say Slacker...
Was this during your independent film
probably,
period?
Yes,
yeah.
Because I had seen Slacker before this, not knowing that was inspiration for Kevin Smith at all. I actually didn't realize that until we had done research for this. But I had thought Clerks sort of fit in that same sort of outlook. At the time, I was a teenager.
Sure.
These are films that kind of fit very much in that teenager, young adult kind of mentality where the real world sucks.
Yeah.
I just want to go back and be a kid person with zero responsibility.
Play video games and read comic books. Yeah. Which I'm sure Kevin Smith did too.
I can only imagine.
Clerks is also loosely based on the Divine Comedy by
Dante Alighieri.
Yeah. Dante, of course, being the name of the main character.
Dante Hicks,
Yep. There's also 9 breaks in the movie as you're watching.
9 little title card breakages.
Yep, which are supposed to represent the 9 rings of hell.
You say that it was inspired by Dante's Divine Comedy, the Inferno in particular. That shift sucked. So yes, definitely. That's the Inferno segment of the Divine Comedy.
Yeah. We usually talk about out with the old and with the new. There really isn't any out with the old, in with the new, except I did mention that this is the movie that launched 1,000 ships, right? And what I mean by that is after this movie came out, there were a lot of aspiring filmmakers who saw this movie and said, hey, if he can do it and be successful, what's stopping me? That really started a huge movement in movie making for independent films.
It really did.
Yeah.
There was a bursting after that.
Huge bursting. And I think if there's any out with the old and with the new, that's kind of the big thing that I would point out.
One person who is on record as saying that Clerks inspired him to break into directing is Jason Reitman.
Yeah.
Did you read about the quote from Jason?
I did, yeah.
He mentioned to Kevin Smith that watching Clerks is what inspired him.
Kevin's like, your dad, though. Like,
your dad is Ivan Reitman.
Yeah, what?
You grew up on the set of Ghostbusters.
Right?
And you needed me, Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith.
To show you that you can pursue directing. I thought that was adorable.
That was adorable. Yeah, I read that too and I was like, aw.
Yeah.
I love that. So let's move into some facts now. I mean, we've covered all of the bases, I think.
Yeah.
Let's move into some fun facts. This movie has so many. The first draft of the script was only 168 pages. So I think Kevin was just writing it really fast so that he didn't have to produce.
I'm sure.
Because he wanted to direct a film.
He wanted to get that first credit.
So 168 pages, done. It's done.
It's good. It's
fine.
ready to go.
Let's go.
We'll make the rest up as we go.
We had mentioned that the shutters were closed.
Locked with
gum. Can you explain a little bit as to the reasoning behind that?
They filmed this movie at night.
21 straight nights.
21 straight nights.
Yeah.
And the movie wasn't supposed to take place explicitly at night. The majority of it was during the day.
Yeah.
Dante was supposed to be relieved from his shift by noon. You couldn't have it be dark outside. No. And if the shutters for the windows at the front of the store were open, filming at night, what are you going to see? You're going to see dark outside.
Plus, no money for production. So there's not going to be any lights.
There's not going to be lights out there. Yeah. So Kevin Smith had the idea, hey, I'll just leave the shutters closed. Perfect.
They'll be stuck shut.
Yes. There you get gum in the locks. That's why the shutters are not open. That is the behind the scene reasons the shutters are not open.
Oh my gosh. Genius,
Yeah,
though.
it's a great use.
Jason Mewes was not in any of the photo shoots for Clerks. He wasn't in any of the photo shoots because Miramax believed that he had no commercial appeal and that he would scare audiences away rather than entice them. So if you're looking for photo shoots at the time of Clerks, he is not in any of them.
Which turns
out for that
out
explicit reason.
That he
was the draw.
Is the draw to that movie.
He's what kept them coming back for more. How wrong could you possibly be, man?
Jay's outfits throughout the film are constantly changing.
But this is all during one day.
Yeah, it's all during one day. This character must have
quite the wardrobe.
Yeah, sorry, Beyonce. This man is changing some clothes.
Well, you're a drug dealer. You got to look fresh.
The coat that he had started wearing when filming started, he was borrowing from his girlfriend at the time, but he couldn't get it from his girlfriend every day. So he just constantly came to set with different.
But I kind of like that. It's kind of interesting.
And the funny thing is when you're watching it, if you're not paying attention, you just don't notice it.
No.
Because his character is so large. You're not looking at his apparel. You're just there to be entertained.
Brian was saying he was working at, I think, a factory or something like that at the time. He said that he'd work at the factory, get home, eat dinner, he'd go to sleep until like 11. Then he'd go over to film, and then he'd go back home and go to work again. He said it was just like I was just wearing the same outfit though, like every day. It was like Groundhog's Day, it was every day.
Same
thing. For 21 days, 21 nights straight. Jay, of course, gets to come in clearly wearing whatever he wants.
Basically.
And Brian's over here complaining that he has to wear the same stuff every single day. Jason, so his story, like how he became part of this production is kind of interesting.
All right.
So he first became friends with Brian Johnson, which was Kevin's friend and coworker, and Walter Flanagan. Flanagan is another one of Kevin's friends.
Yep.
So Jay first became friends with them, and they had decided to go on a trip across state and asked Jason to come along, and Kevin was like, no, he's a minor. We're not taking him across state lines.
Right.
And of course, Brian and Walter were like, it's fine. He can come with us. Jason goes, shotgun, and sits in the front seat, I guess, the whole time and just entertains the shit out of everybody except Kevin. Kevin didn't like him. Kevin said, he ain't so fucking funny. And at the time, Kevin was their new funny friend. And he said he felt kind of threatened
He was being displaced.
He said he felt kind of threatened by him. After the trip, Jason, I guess, started showing up at Kevin's house. And his mom would say, hey, Kevin, that dirty boy is outside knocking again. And then he would go out and ask him what he wanted. And Jason wouldn't go away. He's like, what are we doing? What are we doing today? So he said one day he just ended up inheriting him. And then eventually he said, I thought he was so funny. I decided I'm going to put him in one of my movies. And so the rest is history in terms of how he ended up getting into the movie. Jay's part was actually written explicitly for Jay, but they didn't want Jay to just be standing outside the store by himself, like monologuing by himself.
Yeah, that'd be kind of weird.
Yeah. So that's when Kevin decided to write himself in as kind of the muscle.
The little henchman.
He kind of got the idea because he remembers the kids who used to sell weed outside of his store in high school, and they always had like a muscle character.
Yeah, you got to have somebody there
standing next to him.
Someone's not willing to pay up.
Yeah. Yeah, so he said he said, you know what, I'm going to turn Jay into one of those kids that's leaning up against the wall of the store and selling pot, even though it wasn't something Jay did in real life.
Sure. That's a fun little origin for two very iconic characters.
Another funny part about Jay is that they wrote the part based on how Jay speaks. It's his inflections, it's his mannerisms, it's his own quotes.
Yeah, easy enough for him to just slide into that character.
Yeah. Jay said, I don't know if I can do this. And Kevin's like,
it's you.
It's you. It's all the shit you do. How could you not do this? He said he actually had to spend a month teaching Jay how to be Jay even though that's like how he actually was in real life.
I can understand. I bet for him it was a lot of the camera shy. Putting on a performance as yourself for people who are really uncomfortable in that situation, I can understand.
Yeah.
But that is a great anecdote.
I just think it's really funny they had to teach him to be himself because he was so nervous that I don't know, it's happened to me before too, where you're like, oh, just act natural. Yeah. And like the worst shit comes out of your mouth. And you're like, what the fuck was that?
When someone tells you to act natural, that's the last thing
That's the last thing you're going to do. Or like when a cop comes up to your car to pull you over and you're like, act cool. And then you're like sweating and like acting totally not cool. And you're like, what is wrong? You didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't do anything.
He didn't do anything.
We mentioned Jay was very camera shy.
Yeah.
The scene where it's pretty hilarious given the nature of that character, right?
Yeah.
All you see on screen is just pure charisma. He steals every scene.
Not scared of anything.
No, nothing. He's the most outrageous, boisterous character in the film. And that's a film that's including Randall, right?
Yeah, right.
So there's a scene where Jay does kind of a little dance outside in front of the convenience store.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Jason Mewes was so camera shy. He refused to do that dance in front of the crew. Everybody had to go inside the convenience store and close the door. They left the camera outside, positioned and running, so Jay could do his dance in front of just the camera to get over that camera shy.
I love
which
that.
I thought was pretty awesome.
Do you remember the happy, scrappy hero pup lady?
Oh, do I ever? Boy, is she looking offended.
So, okay, you just said Jay seems so boisterous and over the top, and this is next to Randall. But even Randall had some issues with some of the lines he had to say. And I shouldn't say Randall. His character, Jeff Anderson, had some issues. If you haven't seen the movie, you should go back and see it so you know what we're talking about. But the happy, scrappy hero pup lady is in the movie.
The video rental store.
That's where
Randall
That's where Randall works. Yep. And she's trying to ask for this video. And he's like, well, I can order it for you. Just give me a second. Yeah. And he's on the phone, like ordering some other movies.
Right.
And he just lists off this profound list.
A list of
porno titles.
Terrible porno titles.
Holy macaroni. They are so offensive.
Yeah, hi, this is RSD Video calling. Customer number 4352. I'd like to place an order. Okay, I need one each of the following tapes. Whispers in the Wind, To Each His Own, Put It Where It Doesn't Belong.
It's funny you can see the actual moment in the scene where he's talking actually in front of that actor. And then you can definitely tell the cut close up where it goes to Randall listing off the films where it's just him because the woman's not there.
He had to end up doing the listing of all these porno movies, not in front of her because he couldn't look her and have the child in the room while he listed all these films off because it felt wrong. So they actually had to take it where he's listing all these movies off and she's not actually
she's not actually there
for most of it.
It's funny how many times granted it's only 2 times that I found mentioned that people had to have other people excused.
But they're the two characters that are like the most charisma in the whole film.
Yeah.
And they're the 2 that had the most issues with.
The amount of sometimes off-color shit that both Randall and Jay say. Yeah. And yet these
it's
are
like
the
he did it to them just to make them uncomfortable. Right. The reactions that the mother, were having were actually genuine reactions because she was actually read all of those porno titles, just not by
Jeff Anderson.
He also had said that he didn't want to do it because his mom was going to be seeing the film.
But he still read the list.
Yeah,
just not in front of the woman. So at least he saved some grace.
So Kevin added 4 more titles and said, read it. I don't want to hear you moaning.
Hey, that's some director assertion, right?
Kevin's like, oh, you don't like it? Here's 4 more. Now read it, damn it.
Complain again. I'll add 4 more.
I'll add 4 more. Keep going. Kevin Smith's mom was in this film. She played the milkmaid.
Milkmaid, yeah.
And it was actually not supposed to be her mom. It was supposed to be somebody else. They didn't show up. And Kevin called his mom in the middle of the night and said, Mom, I need you to play this part. And his mom was like, I don't do films. Like, I can't do this. And it's in the middle of the night. I'm not doing this. He's like, Mom, it's really easy. You're just checking the expiration dates on these milk jugs.
The milkmaids?
The women that go through every gallon of milk looking for that later date.
You do it all the time.
That's easy enough.
It's like the part was written for her anyways.
It's nothing new.
It's nothing new. You've done this before. You're just looking at the milk. So she reluctantly came in. And his sister, Virginia, actually was in this film as well. She played the caged animal masturbator.
Yeah.
It's important to have a job that makes a difference, boys. That's why I manually masturbate caged animals for artificial insemination.
Oh,
and if you know, you know, okay?
The fact that she gets to forever have that title
Caged?
credited to her.
That is how it comes up on the film.
What a legacy.
Caged animal masturbator.
His mother and his sister, and they've both gone on to appear in other
Little things.
segments of his other film. But Kevin Smith, just like a lot of other directors we've mentioned in the past, has a crew of actors he likes to go back to.
He does, yep.
Many of them just don't appear in other things. They're only in his films. Of course, Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Jason Mewes, of course, Scott Mosier, Walter Flanagan, Ernie O'Donnell, who played Rick Darris in this movie.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, the role of Dante was written for this guy, but Smith felt the role wasn't right, so it went to Brian Halloran instead.
Brian didn't think he was going to have a major part either.
Yeah, exactly.
Surprise!
Surprise! Rick Darris, the character, actually gets spoken about in a few other Kevin Smith films, mostly for his sexual exploits, and that's kind of what he ends up talking about in this film also. There's still one more connection to the Darris lineage.
You're Rick Darris?
Yeah.
You know him?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm going to say?
No.
No?
Not yet.
So I didn't find it confirmed.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
But I was reading a few interviews where Jason Mewes actually claims Rick and Jay are brothers.
Oh.
So Jay's character is Jason Darris, Jay Darris.
His movies are very interconnected and they're very story rich.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't surprise me that there is that little connection. There's another kind of interesting, I think it's an interesting connection between all of his films. So when Dante and Randall are discussing the death of Julie Dwyer.
Julie Dwyer died?
Yeah, right.
No, I'm serious.
Oh my God.
Dante asks when Julie Dwyer died, and Randall answers yesterday.
Embolism in her brain yesterday.
When they're going to Julie Dwyer's wake, Randall states that it is presently 4:00 on a Saturday, so she would have died on a Friday. In Mallrats, a reference is made to Julie Dwyer dying, which actually means Mallrats takes place on a Friday.
Yeah,
which
that was pretty interesting.
Not important.
Not important, but
interesting nonetheless.
Tidbit. Yeah. Well, and more connection to that even. The girl who's talking to Rick Darris, her name in the film is Heather. The girl who plays Heather was one of Kevin Smith's ex-girlfriends.
Yes.
Heather, she's the sister of Alyssa.
Yeah, do you remember Alyssa Jones? She used to hang out with...
Hey, Caitlin Breen.
I'm her sister.
You're Alyssa's sister, Heather?
Which is Joey Lauren Adams' character from Chasing Amy. So the connections just keep on expanding forever and ever.
I love that. Do you know who Mitch Cohen is?
Mitch Cohen, is he not the guy who played Toxie from Toxic Avenger?
Yes, he's in this movie.
Is he?
It's a very small part, and his title is Leaning Against Wall Angry, Crowd at Door.
That's pretty awesome.
So, little cameo.
Yeah, a little Toxic Avenger crossover.
Toxic Avenger crossover. I mean, why not?
Yeah, certainly he didn't show up as Toxie, but...
No, he didn't. I mean, he could have been. Maybe it was his, Clark Kent.
The guy who played Little Toxic Avenger, I forget the character's name when he's not Toxic Avenger, but that guy was very small compared to the guy who played Big Toxie.
Yeah. The person who picked up this film, who worked for Miramax, picked it up after reading the line, "My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks." The customer curiously says, "In a row?"
37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
And apparently whoever was looking at the script thought that was so funny that they went straight to the VP of Miramax and they greenlit it. But
just off of that.
That was the line that caused them to decide that this film needed to be a thing. So need some funding.
Kevin Smith, after hearing about the allegations against Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Smith immediately went against the man, which is great. So disgusted that he decided from that point forward, every bit of residuals from Clerks, well, not just Clerks, but every Weinstein-produced film that he had ever made, every penny of residual was going to be donated to the nonprofit organization Women in Film.
That's awesome.
Which is phenomenal because, I mean, those films make a ton of money. It's not like Kevin Smith was complicit.
No.
But he
understands that he profited off of that. Yeah.
Was, he was profiting because a sexual rapist was somebody who just unfortunately for him, happened to be the producer of his films, which is ridiculous.
So this film has like pretty much no violence in it. There's a scene where they fight.
There's a little tussle.
There's a little tussle, but you don't really see any blood or anything.
It's hilarious, though.
It's pretty funny, yeah. They originally gave this film an NC-17 rating, just solely based on the dialogue.
All the crude dialogue.
The super graphic dialogue. Miramax decided actually to hire an attorney. His name was Alan Dershowitz. He's actually
famous for another reason.
Part of the O.J. Simpson defense team.
Yeah.
So he's famous for another reason. But he actually successfully petitioned the MPAA to lower the rating to an R without any cuts.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, because this film would not be what it was or is today had that happened.
Yeah, it's the crude humor that, for better or worse, especially working in retail.
Yes.
These are the conversations that you hear a lot.
So these are our inner dialogue. These are also the things we talk about when we go into the office.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hold on, ma'am. Let me go talk to my manager. And I'll go into the office. This is what I'm saying about you. I'm sorry, but this is, not you. But it's probably not you. This is what we talk about. This film really spoke to me. It really spoke to me.
It truly does show the plight of the retail worker.
According to IMDb, the word fuck and its derivatives are said 91 times throughout the film, mostly between Dante and Jay.
I can certainly see that.
Yeah. So if that's any indication, the crude language that's in the film. If you don't like the word fuck, you probably shouldn't watch this film.
No, it's not record setting.
No.
But it's certainly up there.
It's certainly not record setting.
Certainly not. You got Tarantino and Scorsese
that's what I was going to say.
Made a few films before this.
The film was shot in black and white. Can you tell me why?
This kind of goes back to budgetary concerns.
Mm.
So there's a persistent rumor.
It's a fan theory.
Fan theory had surmised that Kevin Smith intentionally made it black and white to make it appear like it was all being seen through these security cameras at this convenience store. Kevin Smith had since come out and said, I love it. I love that theory. And he has actually even adopted it a few times when he's talked to other interviewers.
Yeah.
But he said the truth is, it's just because I had so little money and the lighting we did use was inconsistent.
Yeah.
So we had different tones, different colors. Matching all those in post-production would have just inflated the budget astronomically.
Plus, he was just dropping those off. It was not at a time when we had digital film either. He was taking these reels and dropping them off after filming, going to work, coming back, filming, dropping them off, and he wasn't consistently reviewing them. So there was a lot of concern that he was already going to have issues with sound and picture quality. He really didn't want to have to worry about color.
Lighting. Yeah, so black and white it is. And honestly, it fits so perfectly.
It does, yeah.
I know that I've seen people who have done colorization projects on this movie. I haven't really looked into them. I've seen a few picture stills from colorization projects. It'd be interesting to watch, I think. Yeah. But I almost don't want to watch it because I feel like it would taint my perception.
It'd almost be a different movie to see it all in color.
It would feel very different.
I do like the version of the film that we watched where they interjected the animation.
Right, yeah.
So they interjected into this version that we watched the portion where they go to the funeral, Julie Dwyer's funeral. And they do it all in the animation style that the Clerks animated show was done in, and used the same actors to do the voices for it. I kind of liked that. And it's like a little, I don't know, it's all black and white, and then you get this
little burst of color.
In the middle, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Being so used to seeing the theatrical version from when I was a teen.
Cut you off guard. You're
this is the one we watched this time was the quote unquote the first cut. And that's the one where Kevin Smith had interjected the animated color funeral segment.
Yeah.
In the initial release, it just goes from Dante and Randall talking about going to the funeral and then jump cuts to them escaping the funeral in a hurry.
Yeah.
Because of the events that happened there. And then they kind of briefly talk about what had happened. But you never get to see firsthand until now.
So I don't really have a whole lot of tidbits or big news to say, but I did want to mention just like a neat little thing.
One more little neat thing?
One little neat little thing.
I think we have time for one more little neat thing.
The cover of the Clerks movie, the logo, it says Clerks, and it's got all different letters.
Oh, kind of like a ransom note.
Note, yeah. It was actually made from cutting out letters from different magazines and food items. So the C is from Cosmopolitan magazine. The L is from Life. The E is from Rolling Stone. The R is from Ruffles Potato Chips. The K is from the Clark Bar. And the S is from the Goober's Box.
I think that's really awesome.
I love that.
That's, all these little snacks and things you'd find in a convenience store.
In a convenience store. Magazines you'd find in the convenience store. Yeah.
A genius way of putting together a logo. I
think
really
this
like
was
that.
Wasn't this movie originally supposed to be Rude Clerks or something like that too?
I know it changed titles a number of times. I think Inconvenienced was another.
Yeah.
So I do have one last thing to say, and it's a bit of a spoiler. So
yeah, I do too. Yep. So let's move on to spoiler territory.
Move into
yeah.
Toiler? We probably got the same spoiler, I'll bet.
It's the same spoiler.
Quick little spoiler territory. And since we both say we have something, but it's the same thing, I'm going to transition us over, and then Leia is going to tell us about it. All right, folks. If you don't want to hear about an alternate ending to this film, earmuffs or go outside.
I mean, it really doesn't spoil anything, honestly. It never happened.
Never happened. But you can insinuate.
And there's really not a whole lot to spoil
it's really
in this film either.
I just like having
no big reveal at the end, okay?
I just like having a spoiler segment. It's fun. So here we go. Spoiler, but not spoiler. Feel free to listen along. It doesn't really matter.
Hell of a day.
To say the least.
Want me to do anything before I get out of here, man?
Why don't you wrangle for me?
No.
It's a spoiler. The alternate ending
is
the spoiler. And honestly, it's not an ending anybody wanted to see. I don't think I like the idea of it.
It's the original written ending. It actually was filmed.
All right, so it's meant to continue from when Randall throws the "I sure you were open" sign to Dante. He throws the sign to Dante, and Randall leaves the store. Dante proceeds to count the register out, doesn't notice another person enters the store.
Yeah, it should be closing.
Should be closed, but another person enters the store and he doesn't notice it. Dante at first thinks it's Randall, but he looks up and he informs the person that the store is no longer open.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're closed. You can't be here. The person that's in the store pulls out a gun and shoots Dante.
Yeah, grim.
Killing him. Afterward, the man puts all the money from the cash register in a bag and he just walks out the store. And then the sequence ends with Dante's dead face looking off past the camera. And then after the credits roll, the soundtrack over it being a cash register making noises. A customer, who's played by Smith with his beard shaved off, wearing glasses and a ponytail, and a baseball jersey, comes into the store, sees no one around, as Dante is lying dead behind the counter.
Right.
Doesn't see him lying there. Steals a pack of cigarettes and runs off. And that's it. That's the end of the film. How depressing is that?
Yeah. What a bad day. Even worse day.
He's not even supposed to be here. And that's what happens. A lot of fans have since analyzed the death of Dante and have thought that maybe it's an homage to the ending of The Empire Strikes Back, which was discussed earlier in the film.
What did you like better, Jedi or The Empire Strikes Back?
Empire.
Blasphemy.
By Dante and Randall.
Star Wars is a big theme through the film.
It's a pretty big film.
I mean, it's not
big scene.
It's not directly influenced by Star Wars, but there's a lot of Star Wars talk.
There's a lot of banter.
Yeah.
Dante says that that's his favorite Star Wars movie because it ended on such a down note.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of the reasons they think...
foreshadowing illusion.
Yeah. There are 3 reasons that Kevin said he wanted it to end darkly. And these are the 3 reasons, okay?
Right.
The first reason, and the most primary reason, the ending would be a payoff for Dante's repeated claims of, I'm not even supposed to be here today. So it's meant to be funny, but like dark.
Darkly funny.
Darkly funny, yeah.
You gotta be fucking kidding me. I got a hockey game at 2 and the steel shutters are jam closed and he's in Vermont? I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Smith said that he wanted an homage to the ending of one of his favorite films, which is Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, which is another comedic film, but it has a dark ending just like this. Spike Lee's name can actually also be seen in the special thanks portion of the credits.
Oh, all right.
I'm sure inspiration for the film. Smith also stated that he ended Clerks with Dante's death because he didn't know how to end the film. That's it.
Reminiscent of the Coen brothers with
Hudsucker
Proxy. Yeah. We don't know how to end it. So
we don't know how to
magic.
End it. Magic.
In this case, not magic, but robber.
Yeah, in this case, not magic, but death. So yeah, that's all I have on the spoiler section.
I will say one other thing that I think sort of makes a poignant concept to that dark ending. So let's look at it this way. So the idea behind the connection to the Divine Comedy, right?
Yeah.
You got Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. The first book, Inferno, which could be allegorized with this film. The second film, Clerks 2, they're working at a different establishment.
Mm-hmm.
They're no longer working at the convenience store. Almost like a bit of a purgatory-ish kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe Clerks 2 is your purgatory entry. Clerks 3, perhaps your Paradiso entry, where it's kind of the examination of life as a whole. So would it be apt to say that had he did die in this film, even still you could have included Clerks 2 and 3 as sort of this man's travel through the Divine Comedy? Just kind of
pretty dark and deep. Right?
Yeah, kind of an odd little thought there, huh?
Did you come up with that yourself?
I did, actually, just now, to be truthful.
Wow.
So I'm not claiming that it's entirely original. Maybe somebody else had come up with it.
That's how it was supposed to be, but I didn't read anything about that.
No, that's just a thought I had. If somebody else had that before me and it's posted out there somewhere, I did not take that idea, but I do acknowledge that it is possible that is not an original idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, God, can we move on?
Oh, I know.
I'm embarrassing myself.
I know.
So, Leia, it's kind of crazy how time flies when you're doing something you actually enjoy, right? I feel like this went pretty quick, particularly compared to when we used to work in retail. Those shifts took forever.
Yeah, especially the night shifts when all you wanted to do was get home. And all you knew is that once you got home, you had to go back to bed.
Yeah,
you could get up and do it all over again.
You can do that same grindy crap again. Every shift, you want it to end. This, I don't want to end. I would love to go on forever, but we can't keep everyone forever.
Yeah.
Right? We got to get back to our lives. They got to get back to theirs. I'm sure some of them have even better things to do than listen to us ramble for the rest of the day. But I think it's time we close things up.
At least to get to close with you today.
It's true.
Last week you were MIA.
Let's not talk about where I disappeared to. That was an experience.
You still won't tell me where you went.
I'm not talking about it.
All right.
Maybe someday I'll reveal
I'm surprised you're not more mad at me,
secrets
honestly.
I saw. It was a journey.
All right. I'm glad you're back.
Well, in fact, Leia, in reference to where I went, let me just say and see if you can make this connection, or maybe somebody else will. Liberate tutame ex infernus. Horror sci-fi fans will get that notice, I think. Rounding things out, let's invite everybody to please check us out at themovietheaterlobby.com. Don't check out our email. Email us.
Yeah, just don't check it out.
Yeah, don't just
actually do it.
Don't just write an email message and look at it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and send it to us.
Yes.
At themovietheaterlobby@gmail.com. Find the show on social media at The Movie Lobby, particularly on Blue Sky. You can find us on a few other socials, I believe Facebook and Instagram, but
you can find us there.
You can find us there. I don't think we've checked in there in a while.
Not in a while.
Blue Sky primarily. Wherever you're listening, please just real quick, just do a little tap on those stars.
Yeah.
And throw a few stars at us just because
they're fun to see.
It's fun to see.
Yeah.
We've gotten a few of them and it kind of makes our hearts happy.
It does make our hearts happy.
See little twinkling stars everywhere.
Yeah.
It's great. So just do us a favor, give us some stars. If you want to leave some comments, that's awesome too. Mm-hmm. We would love to read. In fact, I've got a few I'll read here in a little bit.
Okay.
But also please subscribe to our show. Please. That's pretty awesome for us.
Mm-hmm. I love seeing that.
Especially share our show. Spread us around. We're not going to run out. There's unlimited quantities of the show for you to share. So please do.
Yeah.
There's a limited number of episodes, but you're not running out of supply.
Yeah, there's no supply and demand here.
Find me, Brandon, at BrandMC on Blue Sky, and somebody with a little bit larger presence than me, Leia.
I don't have a larger presence than you. You can find me, Leah McClevey, at LM Nerd Room on all of the previously mentioned socials, particularly on Blue Sky. And you can also email me at lmnerdroom@gmail.com.
There we are. Can always get a hold of that lady. Got to say thank you to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to everyone who comes back with us every week. Thank you to those who stop in and listen to just a few of their favorite episodes, maybe touching on their favorite movies or whatever. That's also great. But before we kick everyone out, we got to do our coming soon.
We promised it. It's here.
We're going to keep doing it.
We're going to keep doing it.
God help us if we forget now.
Yeah.
Because we're
in it to win it.
Committed. So following this kind of fun little daily all about nothing adventure with Clerks, we're covering a movie, an anthology movie based on an anthology TV series.
Mm-hmm. we're covering the 1983 film classic, Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone.
The movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Not all of the TV series, just the movie.
Yes.
Once again, we're getting really long here, aren't we? Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
And Leia, thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. I had a great time.
Great time talking about this movie, this great little movie. Oh, and I do have to say, we did bump this episode up.
Yes.
Because Leia, we had somebody who requested
explicitly
that we get to this movie a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So
thanks, JJ.
JJ, thank you, sir. This movie's moved up just for you. So now, Leia, now that we've got everything out of the way, thank you. And we'll see everybody next week on
The Movie Theater Lobby.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you close soon?
In half an hour.
Yeah, we get off the same time every day. We should hang out. You get high?
I should start.
Want to come to this party with me tonight? There's going to be some pussy there, man.
With you? I don't think so.
Oh, look at you. I don't hang out with drug dealers.
Nothing personal.